Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dalaran, and in today's video I'll be showing you guys a small trick on how to get more character customization out of your tunes utilizing transmogrification and artifact weapons. Recently in Shadowlands I've been seeing players running around with weapon transmogrifications of different specs artifact weapons, and I wanted to figure out how do people do this. I've seen protection warriors with the artifact weapon of arms warrior in main hand while wielding his shield offhand. I've seen windwalker monks running around with two staves from brewmasters, and even subtlety rogues with the outlaw daggers. In this video I wanted to talk about the bug, show you how it works, talk about some of the things you will need to do in order to get this to work, and hopefully Blizzard doesn't change this because the customizations you can get out of your tunes is actually kind of cool. So the background for this video, I've recently been seeing players running around with weapon transmogrifications not designed for their classes. In 5.5.1 duels, for example, we saw monks running around with two-handers, utilizing the staff that you get as a brewmaster monk, or rather the polearm, the one that has a jug hanging off it, where it looks like as a windwalker you are dual-wielding brewmaster staves. There was a separate video already talking about how you can accomplish this with monks, but this video is a little bit different. The video that talks about how to do this for windwalkers would apply for any classes that have a dual wield aspect, because it has something to do with the main hand offhand inside of the transmogrification menu. For this video, what I found is a Reddit post that talked about how you can change the appearance of one weapon for one spec to be that of an artifact weapon of another spec altogether. And that's what primarily my video is all about. So to get this to work, I would suggest doing this at a transmogrification vendor, not on a yak mount, because a lot of you guys probably have one, but doing this on a transmogrification vendor sometimes causes this not to work, or at least it didn't work for me. So I would rather do this, if you are going to be trying this, in Dalaran, Orgrimmar, Stormwind, or in Oribos. If you're someone who has a bunch of different mogs for different specs, like for example your Retribution Paladin, Protection Paladin, and Holy Paladin look different, you might have to disable that unique transmog for all the different specs for this to work. As when I had, let's say, my Frost Death Knight and Unholy Death Knight looking differently in their mock setups, then this trick didn't work, it kind of bugged out. So you have to make sure your characters are wearing exactly the same gear with exactly the same appearance transmogrified for this to work properly. If you have different gear sets for different characters, like for example my rogue has an outlaw set, subtlety set, and an assassination set with different trinkets and items used for PvE combat, it might be a good idea for this trick to work to disable the automatic switching of the equipment manager, because without that, this trick for me seems to not work properly. To set up exactly how you'd want to switch your character, basically have, let's say, two different specs, like let's say my Retribution Paladin and my Prot set wearing exactly the same transmog gear. Make sure to interact with the transmog vendor as a Retribution Paladin, and make sure that the weapon you'll be using for your Protection Paladin, the one-hander, is in your main hand. Blizzard made it that after Legion, that if you are trying to transmog weapons to be of artifact weapon, they will overwrite whatever weapon you're currently wearing and give you the appearance of your artifact weapon. So let's say if you're a mage and you got a sword and an offhand, but you're more preferable to using staffs for your transmog, it will overwrite that one-hander in the offhand to look like a staff, as long as it's an artifact appearance. While you are in the transmogrification menu, you'll want to use a macro that runs a script to change your spec. You can either change your spec by going into the character panel and going into the talents panel, and there'll be a specialization tab and you can change your spec like that, or you can run a script that changes your spec automatically. Now the script will change your specs to spec 1, spec 2, and spec 3. For most classes, spec 1 is the one at the top, spec 2 is the one in the middle, and spec 3 is the one at the bottom, and I would guess for druids, spec 4 would be the fourth spec since they come with 4. Usually number 1 is at the top, number 2 is your middle spec, and number 3 is at the bottom, but that doesn't work with every single character. So you all have to do a little bit of experimentation with your characters to find out which spec these macros switch your character to. So utilizing this, I will have my character, my paladin, have the window for transmogrification open, ready to transmog my one-hander into the artifact weapon. So then I'll use a macro to change my spec from ret to prot. As the bar fills and it's almost full, right as it basically gets there, I'll press accept in the transmogrification menu screen. And what this will do is it'll have a bit of a delay. It'll make me change to prot spec using exactly the same gear, since I don't have the auto equip manager assigning me different set if I'm going from ret to prot. And it'll also apply with a bit of a delay the artifact weapon appearance from my Retribution Paladin. Because of the accept button having a bit of a delay, it will be delayed, but it'll still process. So as you're switching to a different spec, it'll apply that Retribution Paladin's artifact appearance. Normally, if you're a Protection Paladin, you can only use the Protection Paladin artifact appearance that will overwrite whatever you're currently wearing and using to the artifact appearance of your prot. But this way you are overriding whatever weapon you equip in your main hand to that of a whole another spec, this one being Retribution. So as I'm running around on my Retribution or Protection Paladin rather, I look like a red. I still have the abilities and functionality, and my character still has a main hand and a shield equipped in my offhand. So I still have the functionality to tank things and block things, so all that looks fine, but I have the appearance as if like I'm a Death Knight, for example, wielding a massive two-hander, but tanking for my group, which is kind of cool. Afterwards, I wanted to test out what are the limits of this transmogrification feature with some of the interesting examples. For example, is it possible to equip a shield and a one-hander as a Fury Warrior? And it turns out you can. So if you remember the Warlords of Draenor playstyle of Gladiator Protection Warriors, who in Glad stance literally at the time did more damage than Arms and Fury and was a legitimately good DPS build for a while until Blizzard nerfed it and then removed it afterwards. If you want to relive that same glory of being like this brawler that just likes the aesthetic of a shield and sword but wants to do damage, you can. Because you'll basically be playing Fury and Arms Warrior exactly the same way, but you'll have an offhand and a one-hander as your appearance. It doesn't change the playstyle at all, but just gives you a little bit extra cool aesthetic and, in a sense, a little more transmogrification and customization for your character. This also works for rogues if, let's say, you play Assassination and you're kind of tired of using those small little daggers and you would rather go with a more extravagant, much bigger looking weapon, because imagine that mutilate animation and syncing it together with some powerful swords, kind of like stab the enemy. So now you can. So as an Assassination rogue, you can have the weapons of an Outlaw rogue kind of piercing the enemy in this mutilate fashion and still being able to use all the same poison abilities while wielding swords because it's only a cosmetic appearance. I've tried to do this for a variety of different characters, and the only limitation I've found so far is that hunters cannot use bows or guns in melee. So if you're trying to have a survival hunter that kind of beats the enemy up with a gun or beats the enemy up with a bow or a crossbow, but it doesn't look like that this functionality and interaction properly works on a hunter, as it doesn't even let you transmog a staff or a polearm into a bow if you switch to marksman or beast mastery. So in this method currently for marksman hunters to have a staff that shoots arrows, or maybe a survival hunter that beats the enemy with a crossbow, that currently does not work. But I don't think that's going to work ever, since this is a bug that we are using in order to get a different appearance for our characters, so not much we can complain about really. Aesthetically, this works really good for any melee classes because you'll see them swinging their weapons, and for a lot of the casters, in most cases you already can transmog. You can do little things like, let's say you have a one-hander and an offhand as a Shadow Priest, and you can still have that Discipline Priest artifact skin with this method, but you already can do that as long as you're using a staff in your main hand anyway, so it's kind of mute there. But if you ever want to see what a dual wielding unholy Death Knight looks like, now you can. And for melee, I think this is where it's going to be a little bit of customization until Blizzard fixes this, and I really hope they don't. I feel like this is a small little thing that kind of they slip by, a small bug, and I'm hoping they don't fix it, but sometimes Blizzard likes to fix things that are not really broken, and this is more fun than anything. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I do hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and as always, I'll see all of you guys in another video.